So good morning. Just a little recap about what we looked at. We've already had a look at positive and negative extremism. So, you know, what is fake news, how to spot it, and also how it's often used by extremists to kind of recruit people to their cause. Then we looked at emotions, you know, kind of how they impact what we're thinking, how we're feeling, and then how our behaviour tends to follow suit. And you learnt lots of sort of more skillful ways, didn't you, to deal with your emotions. So what we're going to go on to today then is we're going to explore relationships. So the key things here are going to be identifying, you know, what makes a healthy relationship? What does a good relationship look like? And then, you know, conversely, what does an unhealthy relationship look like? All right, and then unfortunately we are going to then have to look at, you know, what makes abusive relationships and harmful relationships, because, you know, you remember part of this programme is really about helping you, isn't it, to build your resilience, how we're going to keep you safe, you know, with all the sources of online media that you're going to be digesting in your everyday lives, okay? We just really want to make sure that you're aware of what goes on and how you can keep yourself safe from these things. And also, you know, how would you know? How would you tell if somebody was trying to groom you? Yeah, what sort of signs could you look out for? When would you think to take a step back and just make sure that you were in fact safe? So what I'd like you to do first is, if you get a piece of paper out and a pen, and I just want you to do a quick mind map of how many different relationships that you can think of. So while we're feeding back and we're talking about these issues today, everybody has the right to be heard and respected. I know you know this. We'll all use language that won't offend or upset other people. We'll use the correct terms, and if we don't know them, we'll ask the teacher. We'll comment on what was said, not the person who said it, and we won't share our own or our friends' personal experiences, and we won't put anyone on the spot. So if you don't want to talk about something when we get to it, then that's fine as well, okay? Just sort of quietly let me know. And we're not going to judge at all, are we, or make any assumptions about anybody, because this is a safe space that we've got here, isn't it? So we trust each other, okay? So does somebody want to start me off?
Stepsisters.
Stepsisters. Yeah,
3.
Great stuff. So what sort of group does that belong to, if you like? If you're thinking about groups of people, they're part of your...
Family.
Family, yeah, that's a big one.
I put that as siblings and then said parents.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So you've got relationship with your parents, you've got relationships with your siblings, your brothers and sisters. Yeah.
A relationship with your grandparents.
Brilliant, yeah. Yeah, and they're often quite different, aren't they? Any other groups that you've not heard yet? Yes, Libby?
A platonic relationship.
Yeah, platonic. So what do you mean by that? Do you mean...
By like, it's like where you love someone but non-romantically.
Yeah, definitely.
Pets.
Pets, yeah, definitely, yeah. So on your mind maps, you've already started thinking about the types of relationships, haven't you? So you've already identified a lot of what's on this slide. You've got your parents, siblings, friends, romantic, employer and employee is one that we didn't have. So, you know, you're not sort of there yet, but you will be, you know, at some point in the not too distant future. Brother and sister, we've identified as siblings, and teacher and pupil. You know, you've all got those relationships, haven't you, as well, in school. Can you just draw a little spider diagram of all the qualities and aspects that you think would make that relationship healthy? When I come to you, if you could just tell me what type of relationship you focused on, and then give me just 1 or 2 key things that you think make it a really good, healthy relationship.
I had siblings, and from my experience, these are what cause a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Regularly annoying each other.
Yeah.
Going in the room for no reason and then leaving the door open.
Oh Well, that's what I do.
And then laughing about stupid stuff.
Okay, yeah. I think that one's probably better, isn't it? The other things are things that you can all laugh about when you're not cross about it in the moment, perhaps, yeah. Libby?
We did significant, like, other relationships, like double-sided feelings.
Yes, definitely. So when your feelings are reciprocated, so it's a bit more balanced, yeah. Yeah, great point.
Friends.
Yeah.
And I got being happy around each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Laughing over nothing.
Yeah, always a good one.
Listening to each other.
Uh-huh.
Trust. And being there when they need you the most.
Fantastic. Well, who couldn't argue with that? Let's hope we've all got friends like that, eh? So what I want you to do next is, you can see on the board, we've just got a table here that says relationships at the top, and then the left-hand column is saying healthy, middle one says unhealthy, and then the one on the right-hand side says abusive. And then, do you remember we've talked about the 6 different types of relationships? And if you want to add any, you can. Just pop them in that left-hand column. Okay, so if we take the example that's on the board, some of these things you've already mentioned, but this one here is an example of a romantic relationship, a significant other, as you've said. Some of the qualities that have come up are things like, you know, making each other laugh, being attracted to each other, listening to each other, trusting each other, loving each other, and treating each other as equals. Those qualities, do you think they're useful qualities to have in most of our relationships, or are they only qualities that would make for a good romantic relationship?
And you could have some of them in like normal friends, like making each other laugh and listening to each other and trust.
So even though I've asked you to focus this morning on you know, just one type of relationship, a lot of the things that make that relationship positive and healthy could equally apply to other relationships you're going to have. So are there any other things that you would want to add to that? So things that we've already talked about this morning, thinking about all these sorts of relationships and any other types of relationships that you've got. Yes, Abby?
Not letting each other down at last minute.
Yeah, so being able to be trustworthy, so not letting people down. Yeah.
Respect.
Positive words.
Reassurance.
Basic trust.
Trust. Yeah, definitely.
Also be respectful to their family.
Sometimes, are we all going to feel and think exactly the same about everything that's going on in our lives and in the world?
We all have our own opinion.
We're all going to have our own opinion. Yeah, good point. Okay, so what happens when we disagree?
An argument could be caused.
Is that how you would want disagreeing to be handled?
You should just try and agree to disagree.
Fantastic. That for me is a key to having a healthy relationship as well. So what I want to do now is, in your pairs, I want you to think of a reason why each of these relationships would be important. Okay, so who would like to feedback on that exercise?
Like a healthy thing in a parent relationship could be guidance.
Guidance, yeah, I like that.
Into adult life and stuff.
It'll make you gain confidence.
Loyalty, having someone's always going to be loyal to you.
Having someone to speak to, like if you don't speak to your parents or something.
Yeah.
Having someone there to turn to, knowing like no matter what you're going through and no matter what they're going through, they're going to be there.
So, thinking to these kind of relationships, things don't stay the same, do they? You know, life happens, things move on. Can anyone think about pick maybe one of those types of relationships and just think about how that relationship could change over time? Yes, Casey.
You could start off as just friends and then go into like boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yes, yeah, you could. Absolutely. Hayden?
When you like move schools, going to high school, some of your friends might be going to a different school, or they might stay the same if you've moved, and you might just lose them, like you've stopped talking to them since you lost contact with them.
Yeah, so in that situation there's a sense of loss for some friendships that maybe you won't be able to maintain, but what's the other thing that will happen that hopefully is a positive?
You'll gain a friend.
You'll gain new friends, won't you? Yeah, definitely. Abby?
you could not have a strong relationship. It could like break down a bit, not talking to each other as much.
Yeah. So thinking about how relationships could change, I'll give you an example. Thinking of romantic relationships. Do all romantic relationships last forever? No.
Life doesn't last forever.
So I'm not, not trying to be sad about it, but we have to be realistic, don't we? Not all relationships work out and have a sort of a positive outcome in the long term. Okay, so thinking about that kind of relationship, so think for instance of a romantic relationship, what sort of things might be a sign that the relationship was moving perhaps from healthy towards unhealthy? Yes, Casey?
Like less talkative, like not talking to each other as much.
Not being as like happy around each other. Feeling like a bit down when you're around each other.
Okay.
And not being like, not trusting them as much.
Okay. Jazz?
Arguing frequently.
Yeah, absolutely, if arguments creep in. So it's just, we talked about putting all those kind of relationships in the healthy column. Mm-hmm. It's also being aware that if things change, it doesn't mean that just because it's your parent or your significant other, a sibling, a friend, for instance, it doesn't mean that those kind of relationships can't become unhealthy or even in time unsafe or abusive. We can see the importance, can't we, of positive, healthy relationships, because we feel happier, don't we? If we've got good relationships around us, it makes life a whole lot easier, doesn't it? But there are other examples, aren't there, when, relationships that you should perhaps be able to trust aren't healthy anymore. What about things like grooming? People who groom vulnerable children, sometimes they are known to you. They're not necessarily strangers, are they? So we can't assume that just because somebody's known to us or it's an existing relationship, that they then therefore wouldn't ever present any danger to us. So if we stick with thinking about grooming for a minute, what sort of signs, what sort of things might make you think, oh, hang on, this is supposed to be healthy relationships, not feeling too healthy?
If it's like a person who's like above you, like a teacher, parent, or something like that, they might give you like special treatment, like buy you more gifts than other siblings, like I've seen stories of people who have been abused, that the people who abuse them buy them gifts to keep them quiet or to make up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so things that sometimes you might think would be a good thing in a relationship, like, gifts and everything, you've kind of got to look a little bit behind what's happening sometimes. That's a really good point, thank you. I'm just going to go to Libby a minute. Loud and proud, lovely.
Manipulative habits.
So give me an example of that, Libby.
Like if you were to say to someone, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, and they would be like, well, if you go, I won't have anyone else. And saying like, you can't leave me because I'll be alone. It's manipulative. Yeah,
so almost like emotional blackmail, that kind of manipulation. Yeah, that's a really good point.
If they do something that's like alarming or anything that seems a bit like weird and you bring it up and then they just like either apologise like over and over again saying like, no, I didn't mean to do that, like you've got to forgive me, as a way to make you feel bad for feeling uncomfortable.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is if you just tuck your chairs quietly under your desk and stand up. So I'm going to read you a series of statements, okay? And on that end of the wall there is if you think it's healthy. You're going to stand in the middle there if you think it's unhealthy. If you think the statement is tipping over into harmful or abusive, I want you to stand in this corner. Is that clear? We know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so first one is, you've been tracked researching animal experiments online and you receive a request to join Stop Cruelty to Animals group. Hayden, are you thinking it's unhealthy, or are you just about in the healthy zone there?
Unhealthy.
Unhealthy. Do you want to tell us why?
If they're tracking you, then that means they've been stalking you, so it wouldn't be really healthy.
Yeah.
If they're tracking you, they could like find out like most of your information, like what your schools are, like where you go, and then that could turn abusive.
Absolutely. So I think, you know, you're probably right if this is an isolated incident and that's all they've done with that information, but it's just being aware, isn't it, that these things are quite fluid and just sort of staying vigilant. Yes, Jazz.
I thought about it in a different way, because it's animal cruelty is tracking you, and you're trying to experiment on animals.
Yeah.
That's the relationship between the animal and you was probably abusive.
Okay. All right. So you've gone to abusive because of that relationship. Okay. So second statement then. Listens to you when you're upset.
It's like supporting.
Yeah,
you're supporting them, so it's healthy.
Fab. So that's a sign of a healthy relationship. Okay, so number 3, respects your boundaries and doesn't pressure you into things.
Is really healthy and not unhealthy, because they've chosen to be with you. So like, it is healthy, not unhealthy. That's why I've chosen.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff.
If you're doing something bad and they're like respecting that, then the good thing they're not going to respect, so you're going to keep doing the thing that's bad.
Okay, so next one. Your friend on Snapchat sends you money to buy a train ticket to meet him or her. She or he says not to tell your parents, or they'll probably say no. Libby?
Well, like, it's unhealthy because it's sketchy. You don't know the person and they're telling you not to tell your parents. Like, not only is that unhealthy, the second you meet up with them, it can turn abusive.
What was it in that sentence that kind of made your alarm bells ring?
Not telling your parents, that's just big red flag.
Absolutely. Yeah. Abby?
And like, you don't know if that's like their phone got stolen or someone got into it.
Yeah.
And it could be like an old man or something trying to abuse you, but acting like your friend so they can get you there.
So the next one then tells you your problems aren't important. So, Karen.
Well, I think it's like abusive, but not like physically, but more emotionally. Because how are you supposed to like have that good, like, stable relationship with a person if they don't like respect you and your problems?
Like, if it's like really severe, then like, and they tell you it's not important, and like they make it all about them, saying like, oh, it's not important, I have it worse. That's unhealthy, because like you might need help too.
Because they're basically thinking that only their problems matter, but they don't know what you could be going through. You might not tell them because they could keep saying your problems are not important, only mine are important. Then that's just being like selfish. They want you to be there for them, but they're not there for you.
Yeah. So that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
If it is a severe problem, then it's almost belittling to you.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And then that's where that then becomes, that's where you kind of start moving down the continuum, isn't it, towards unsafe and unhealthy. Okay, next one. Doesn't let you have any friends that they don't approve of. Anyone want to move from where they are?
Well, it just seems rude to me because, see, they can have friends that you don't like, but like the other person can have friends that they don't like. I just find that not fair, to be honest.
They might be trying to keep you safe because some people, they might have been friends with them in the past, but then they got bullied by them, so they might not want you to be with like somebody else going to bully you.
Yeah, interesting. So doesn't that show like the difference in context? Okay, so next one. You receive an anonymous text inviting you to a party near to where you live. It says you can take a friend.
If it was just an anonymous person saying like, come to the party and giving an address, that is just very, very sketchy. But saying that you can bring a friend is almost like reassuring, because it's like, you know, if they really wanted to do something bad, they wouldn't tell you, oh, bring a friend, because that friend could be like a proof.
Would having, if you don't know who the person is and who else is going to be there, would having just one friend with you necessarily be enough protection if you don't know what you're going into? Kellen?
I think it's like more unhealthy than anything, because if they're asking you to bring a friend and you don't know the person, they might want to do something to you and your friend, just trying to get more people there to do whatever their like motivation was.
Buys you a lot of presents.
That's like buying people gifts and all that, like every now and again for like a big anniversary. That's like reasonable, but buying you a lot of gifts is almost like a way of saying, "Look at me, I can buy you stuff. Don't leave me." It's a bit unhealthy.
Yeah, could be a little bit controlling, couldn't it, as well, in a way. Navaya?
I think that they might be trying to cover something up by buying you gifts, so they don't look suspicious, but they do.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Always comes along to events with you and your friends.
It could be two things. It could just be them trying to make sure that you're okay and protect you. But on the other hand, it could be like controlling. Yeah, that's the word. Thanks.
Next one, apologises if they make a mistake.
Sometimes the other person might make you seem like you've made a mistake, so you might not have actually made the bad mistake, but like from the way they've grown up, they think it's a mistake, and then like you say sorry, and then when you say it to like another person, they'll be like, there's nothing to be sorry for, so I'm kind of in the middle. Okay. I'm not sure.
Alright then. Yeah, Casey, next door.
The mistake could be quite big, and they think apologising makes everything better when it doesn't.
Absolutely. So a lot of it depends on the situation, doesn't it, and the scale. Wants to spend all of their time with you.
If it's like a mutual feeling, then it's not unhealthy. But if it's like they know you don't want to be near them and it's just to control you, or it's just to keep you away from like people who are more important, or well, not more important, but like someone who you really need to see or want to see,
like family,
then it's controlling.
Makes mean remarks about your appearance. Okay, so you're all in harmful and abusive.
It could be your type that you like to wear that, but it could be not their type, they just don't like it, that you're wearing something that they don't like, so they're just trying to be mean, so they're trying to get you to like their type. Like me and my best friend, she likes black clothes and I like bright stuff, but she's always encouraging me to wear more.
So that's good, so that's a good strategy, isn't it? Because it's not then causing you harm, is it, directly? Okay. The next one, your Instagram friend wants you to join his gang.
Suspicious.
Why is it suspicious?
Because this gang could be not nice. They could like abuse people that are new. Then the person that's getting abused got abused back. But then they might not want to do that, or they might be selling drugs to people, to kids, or just being idiots.
Okay, so even though it's your friend, it's the word gang, isn't it, there, that's kind of made your big red flags go up. Anyone want to add to that? Jazz?
And plus, they say Instagram friend, so you that's assuming that you met them on Instagram.
Yeah, so you might not actually know them very well in the real world. Says you're fit, sexy or hot?
Depends if you're like comfortable with it. Like if you're not comfortable with it, then like it's kind of unhealthy and abusive, but like it all depends on the situation. Like if you're not comfortable with it, then it's weird.
Whoever it's coming from makes like the big difference. So if it's like a friend who you're like comfortable and like say things like that to, or like a significant other, where you've like had like where you've spoke to them about it and have like set those boundaries, then I think it's fine. But if it's like someone who's like in a position of power over you, like a parent or a teacher, guardian, then that's where it gets like a bit like unhealthy.
Doesn't want you to hang out with their friends.
It could be just the fact that like, oh, like my friends can't hang out with them, like as a joke, or like you don't really want to speak to your friends. And it all depends what your friends are like. Like these people could have really bad friends, but then if they're just like normal friends, and like this person's being like, no, you can't hang out with them, that's a bit rude.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's right. A lot of this is in a context, isn't it? Okay, next one. Sticks up for you if you argue with friends, family or teachers.
If they're sticking up for you, then it means that they don't want you they don't want to like help you out in the argument. But then again, it's not really gonna do anything good about it, because now they're getting into more trouble, and you need to learn to stick up for yourself, and you can't just let them do all the work for you, or else they'll start getting tired of it, just decide, you know what, that's it, I'm not being friends with you. How about you just do it all yourself?
Okay, cool, thank you. And then the next one is shares all the same interests as you.
If they share all the same interests as you, they could just be doing it to like you said before, just almost entice you.
Yeah.
And it's slightly manipulative because everyone's different. It'd be very, I guess, coincidental for someone to have exactly the same interests.
Yeah. And I think that's a really valid point you've made there. And it was also, do you remember when we talked about, the kinds of relationships that sit within the healthy column, but how actually, things can happen that tip them over and they then become unhealthy or abusive depending on behaviours. So I think it depends on the context, how well you know the person, and also what's normal for you guys in that relationship. Okay, so last one, being able to politely disagree on personal tastes. Okay, Jacob, why are you standing there, lovely?
They might not have the same interests as you. Like, say you go, oh, I like this food, and they're like, well, I don't really like it, but if you like it, then you like it. I don't like it.
So they're not necessarily trying to be difficult or disrespectful. It can just be a statement of fact. Yeah, absolutely. So you can all sit down again now. Thank you for that. This is a story, real case scenario here, about a boy called Lloyd Gunton. Okay, so I'm just going to read you the headline. Teenager, 17, who plotted ISIS-inspired attack on a Justin Bieber concert after becoming radicalised in his bedroom in the Welsh Valleys, is jailed for life. A 17-year-old boy who was hours away from committing an act of atrocity in Cardiff has been detained indefinitely and must serve at least 11 years. Lloyd Gunton was arrested after researching the security arrangements of a Justin Bieber concert. He plotted to commit mass murder in an Islamic State-inspired vehicle attack. Gunton, from near Llantrisant, South Wales, was arrested after he uploaded social media content to photo-sharing social media site Instagram in late June 2017, which promoted jihad and supported Al-Qaeda. The former A-level student, who has an autism diagnosis, had published images of terrorists, as well as pictures of so-called Islamic State flag and photos encouraging a terrorist attack in Cardiff. He had researched how to carry out a vehicle ramming attack and how to stab and kill, and had also looked into the security arrangement of the Justin Bieber concert in Cardiff's Principality Stadium. His internet history included searches for ISIS beheading video, how to create a terror attack, and what does getting shot feel like. When he was arrested, the teenager was found with a gutting knife and a hammer in his school rucksack, and the martyrdom letter said he was a soldier of the Islamic State and more attacks will follow. So Lloyd Gunton told the police in his interview that he had been talking with someone called al-Baghdadi on Instagram. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was the leader of ISIS. He was found guilty of one charge of engaging in the preparation of a terrorism act, 2 charges of encouraging terrorism, and a further 2 charges of possessing terrorist information. The judge said Gunton's diagnosis of autism made him something of a loner and someone more easily impressed by the things you read on the internet. Yours is not a condition from which you will recover. It is important that, having been tempted to commit a serious offence such as this, you are under some form of supervision for the rest of your life, said Judge Wall. Okay, so just, you know, reflecting on that case study, I know it's a lot of information to take in, but it's, you know, it's a real situation, and we thought it was important that we look at something that has actually happened, and pretty recently, and locally, you know, to us here in Cardiff. So thinking about what we've covered already today, what type of relationship do you think Lloyd Gunton was developing there? Abusive. And just remember where he is now. Hands up.
Abusive.
Say it again, Abby.
Abusive.
Abusive. What makes you say that?
Because he got arrested and he had like a gun and a hammer in his school backpack. So at school he could be like abusing people or threatening people.
Yeah. So he was in that zone where he was a threat to others. But what about the relationship he was developing with this person on Instagram who was the leader?
Unhealthy. That could turn into abusive relationship because they were teaching each other how to like murder and all that. Yeah. And then they could try, he's trying to do that so then he can murder him in a different way.
Yeah.
I think whoever was on the Instagram account purposely chose him because obviously the teenager was vulnerable because people with autism tend to not like understand like social cues and some things that are wrong or right, so he would have been easily influenced, and that's not an excuse for like what he was trying to do, but it was easier to get like to him.
What's that word that what the guy you know, al-Baghdadi, you know, what was he doing?
Grooming, absolutely.
And the fact that he specifically targeted, you know, somebody with autism, you know, is obviously extremely vulnerable, but also somebody young. You know, is there any way, thinking to this main man, this leader of ISIS that he was talking to, is there any way, any of his motivation towards Lloyd Gunton was healthy? No. So thinking to this specific situation, okay, he's vulnerable, we understand why Lloyd got sucked in, but what sorts of things could he perhaps have done?
Prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
He could have, instead of carrying on messaging back, block, report, show parents.
Absolutely. You know, we're not condemning Lloyd, you know, he's done something awful, he's planned to do something awful, he is in jail, he is being punished. You know, so in that sense, we're safe from the threat that he posed, but it's just making sure that, you know, any grooming threats, because it's not just about terrorism and extremism, obviously that's, you know, that's kind of one of the most well-known and the most major threats currently in the world, but there are other instances, aren't there? So can you name me some other instances where young people might... Helen?
Maybe in like a teacher and a student relationship. Yeah. Like if like it's like really horrible to think about, but if there's like a teacher who like favourites you or treats you differently than the others, there's like a big chance there's something else like going
something
on
behind it. Absolutely. And is that just a male teacher and a female student?
No.
They could be even like a sexually abusing you or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there are lots of different types, aren't there? And it's just being aware. Obviously, we're thinking about extremism, you know, particularly, but there are other ways that you can be targeted and be groomed. So it's just being vigilant, isn't it? And then having the resources to know what to do. Okay, so from my perspective, it's like if there's any red flag at all, then what are we going to do?
Tell adult.
Tell the teacher, tell...
Parents, guidance, anyone that you trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and isn't it better to raise a concern where actually it's then found out that there wasn't anything behind it and everybody's treated respectfully and can then kind of carry on and settle back to normal, than to perhaps miss something that could go on to be something like, you know, what would have happened if Lloyd hadn't have been caught? What if the police didn't find his internet browsing history? What could have happened?
He could have gone through with the attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And what might have happened in that situation?
Loads of people could have been injured or died.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, this is the why. This is why this stuff's really important. Okay, I'll come to you, Casey.
He could have killed like thousands of families.
Yeah.
And he could have even killed some of his friends.
And actually might even have decided to do that on purpose, fully aware that there might have been his friends and family involved. Because when you're radicalised, you're almost brainwashed, aren't you, to the extent that all you care about is the cause and who you're representing, which seems alien to us, doesn't it? But, that's what happens, that's what they do. Jazz?
I think that the head of ISIS, when he radicalised the teenager Lloyd, he probably used him as a guinea pig to get out his cause when he was posting about the terrorist attacks and stuff. And because I assume that the ISIS leader, he probably didn't really care about Lloyd, so he didn't mind that he got arrested, which is an abusive relationship.
So, thinking about Lloyd, you see a picture of him up on the board. Is there anything looking at him that would give you a signal or raise any red flags to you that he could be a terrorist?
If you saw him just walking on the street, you wouldn't get any suspicion because he just looks like a normal teenage boy.
Okay, so he looks like a normal teenage boy, wouldn't raise any red flags. So that just goes to show, doesn't it? We can't assume that people are okay and that everything is healthy. But you imagine if he was somebody who came to Cardiff West, would there have been any behaviours or attitudes or anything that he said or did, going around his normal school-to-school day?
I think he'd be maybe quite angry, shouting back at teachers a lot, and I think they said he had a knife in his bag, so maybe he would be keeping onto his bag, not letting anyone near, and clutching it at all times.
Yeah.
I think that he'd probably get in a lot more fights with other children, and while threatening them, if he does have that knife in his bag, you don't know whether he'd use it as a last resort or the first thing he'd come to.
Absolutely.
Maybe if he did have the intention to hit certain people, he would keep asking people who was going to the concert, suspicious questions of who was going and what time it is and stuff.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, isn't it? You've said loads of things there, and I guess from my perspective, all I'd say to you is that it could have been the case, but equally, it might not have been. There might not have been any outside signs. Even people that knew him really well, even people that were in the same class, might have had absolutely no reason to feel suspicious at all. Okay, so if you look on the board, I'd like you to just complete a row. So choose which one you want and follow that through and just jot down on your piece of paper. So what do we understand by the word relationship? And then one from the blue and then one from the yellow. Okay, so hands up anyone who's completed the top row.
I put the word relationship doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but it can be a friendship or a family relationship.
Yeah.
For the bottom one, if you have concerns, you can try and contact your parents because it might have happened to them before.
For the middle one, I said the most important characteristics are loyalty, because they'll stay with you through anything.
Yeah.
And honesty and trust, because a relationship built on lies isn't a very healthy one.
So if we go back to have a look at what our objectives are at the beginning, just have a think about a couple of questions here, key things to come back to. We've talked about that if a relationship, even if it was previously healthy, starts to develop unhealthy things happening within it, and you start to feel it's a bit unhealthy or unsafe, the fact that that can lead to other places, it's not kind of necessarily, you always want to understand somebody's motivations, but there's only so much you can give people the benefit of the doubt. Okay, because if you allow yourself to continually just sort of be forgiving and keep going through things, then that's where you could end up in a situation where you put yourself at a lot of risk, because that's obviously what happens with things like gangs, with knife crime, with extremism, radicalisation, grooming, all those things. Okay, so We've talked about recognising signs if you think somebody's trying to groom you, and we've talked about some of the situations that could occur with. So obviously we had the example of Lloyd being one of extremism. We've talked about, you know, it could be sexual grooming. What about specifically online? You know, looking for online grooming. How would you be able to spot that potentially? And then what sort of things could you do to keep yourself safe?
You could block the account.
You could block the account. So if something's making you feel uncomfortable, you can block the account. Brilliant. Abby?
Block, like Casey said.
Yeah.
Report and show parents. And if it's too bad, you get the police involved.
Absolutely.
Because it could be like a criminal or whatever, and they could find that person.
Yeah.
Like they could get your Snapchat, and the location on Snapchat could be on, then you could tell the police that, and then the police could arrest them for getting young kids into criminals and crime at a young age.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Abby. Wise as ever. So thank you for that. That's great. So you've quite rightly identified, you know, that you can talk to your parents, another trusted adult, if you're feeling really unsafe, or, you know, your concerns are really risen, then you can speak to the police too. Just to draw your attention to this slide, which gives you some other suggestions for further support. Obviously you've got Childline, Young Minds and the Samaritans. So just be aware that, you know, there are online resources as well for you to go and get help should you need it. So thank you very much for your attention.